Okay, everybody. Today we're going to get into the meat of creating your Cardano stake pool. Actually, more today we're going to be looking at setting up your Linux server and how to really make it secure. That's going to be the big part of this focus, as it takes quite a bit of time to set up the stake pool. We're going to look at the security aspects, as I mentioned quite a few times. The most critical thing you can do is really get a good, solid, secure server. So we're going to work on those aspects and make sure you do it right from the beginning. In the last video, I showed you how to set up your server on a hosting provider, and we're going to be using the server that you set up. I would suggest we start with the block producing nodes, but you'll then want to replicate this on all of the other two servers that you have for your relay nodes. So let's kind of get into it. Now, first off, if you're on Windows or Mac, you probably have the setup that you already need to do this. But here on my Windows machine, there's some things you need to set up because I'm on Windows. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's the longer way to do it. But the first thing you need is you need Linux on your machine. A lot of people will dual boot or use a VirtualBox, something like that, to get a Linux set up. What I like to do is do this thing that's called WSL, the Windows Subsystem for Linux. So here's a link here. I'll put in the description of the video. We'll get to this, but you can go to this link here, and it will show you how to set up WSL2, Windows Subsystem for Linux 2 on your machine. And it lists all the prerequisites here. I'm not going to really show you how to do this, but if you open a PowerShell, you can do WSL-install, and it will do the installation for you. I recommend that you set up Ubuntu as the best environment for this. So if you don't have this set up, you can set this up, and this will make your life a lot easier. The other thing that I like to have once that's set up is I like to download this Windows terminal. This is basically like a more advanced terminal setup, but it allows you to switch to a Linux environment, kind of a bash shell that will allow you to work with Linux a little bit more directly. So if you don't have this, you can get this from the Windows Store and download this, and it will really help you out a lot. So now let's go to the next kind of setup here, which is about how to set up the pool. And I'm going to walk you through a setup guide that I found online that's quite good. I don't know who created this, but it's makeadapool.com. This right here, makeadapool.com. Go to this link, and whoever created this has a link at the bottom where you can donate to them. So they did a really good job setting this up. We won't fully follow this guide because this tells you how to set things up in a quite granular way without using a lot of the automation tools that are out there. But it's a pretty good step-by-step guide that's quite clear. So what I'm going to basically do is just kind of walk through this guide because I think it's laid out really well. So be sure to donate at this page, whoever created this, to help support them because they put a lot of effort into doing this. But I think a lot of these concepts may be a little strange, and so I want to talk you through this guide and help you see the steps that you need to do. So first thing is I'm kind of jumping to the section here about SSH. So you can see there's a lot of stuff before this, but I showed a lot of that in the last video, so we're going to go directly to the about SSH section. Okay, so the thing you noticed here is it says if your computer is running Linux or Mac OS, it already has SSH installed. Otherwise, it's talking about using this tool called PuTTY, which a lot of people use for SSH. Also, I think what I do is I just use the WSL2 that I just showed you how to install. If you're because basically WSL is Linux, so you'd already have SSH installed there. So that's what I would do. I think you can just do this using your WSL, and what you'll do is you'll open up your Windows terminal, your command prompt, and open a bash shell, and then you can just use these commands directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the Ubuntu guide here, right? So once you've opened up your terminal, and this is that terminal that I showed you here, just to clarify the Windows terminal. Once you've installed this, you'll be able to just open Windows Terminal. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your IP address from your hosting provider that you set up. So last time we set this up on Contabo, or you could set this up on AWS, whatever. You're going to get an IP address of your server. So there's a command here that says SSH root at the IP address of your server. So here you're going to put the IP address of your server. And you should be able to get that from your machine on your hosting provider. Should be fairly easy to get that. And if it's the first time that you log in, you may get this warning about the authenticity of the host. Can't be established. If you want to really continue, just hit enter and yes, that's fine. Not too much to be worried about there on the first time. And then you're going to be asked for a password for the root. And this, when you type it in, nothing's going to appear, so don't worry if you don't see anything. But be sure you use a super secure password. The more secure, the better. You know, I'd say at least 12 digits. Even better, use a password generator for this. This is a critical password for you. Then the next thing you're going to do, and a lot of this has to do with just setting up your Linux environment, setting up your server and security. So you want to check out your Ubuntu version, so lsb_release-a. And when you run this, you get this output, and it will tell you here, ideally you need to be on at least a minimum of 20.0.4. And if you don't have at least 20.0.4 as the release, you want to upgrade. So if you don't have this, don't worry about this next command. But if you're like on a lower version, you're going to say sudo do-release-upgrade. Now, what does sudo mean if you don't know? Sudo just kind of gives you like administrative access to run that command. So, you know, you'll follow the instructions once you do this. So a lot of commands you're going to use in Linux have the sudo in front of it. Basically, it's just telling you to run this with basically administrative privileges. So once you follow the instructions of the upgrade, if you needed to do that, another critical thing is for you to run these minor updates. So what does this mean? Well, for minor updates, this is going to just make sure you've got the latest patches and everything that you need to be at the latest and greatest, patch and security level. So you're going to run sudo apt update, and then you're going to run sudo apt-get update -y, the and sign sudo apt-get upgrade -y. And then you're going to say sudo upgrade, sudo apt-get auto remove, and then sudo apt-get auto clean. Okay, run all that, and it might take a couple minutes. And it's going to set up everything you need. Okay, so that gets you up to date on the latest version of Linux, right? Now, this is going to run enable live patch, and what this does is it allows security updates for Ubuntu to be installed without restarting your server. So, and there's a link here of where to go to do that. Again, I'll post a link to this in the comment section there, so you can be sure that you follow this and can do these instructions live. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your live patch key from here. Once you sign up for this and get your live patch key, you have to create an account. Once you get that key, you're going to install snap, so sudo apt install snapd, and then you're going to install live patch by sudo snap install canonical-live patch, and then you're going to enable live patch, and you're going to use your live patch key that you got from above, sudo canonical-live patch enable, and put your key in there where it says live patch key. Okay, and then you're going to get an output that says successfully enabled device and machine token, and it'll provide you some details there. Okay, so what now? You've set up the live patch so your server can be live patched now without having to do a lot of manual work. The next thing that you want to do is you need to create a new user. So you had the root user before and you created your password for this. You never want to be logging into your server with the root user. One reason for this is because the root user has like a lot of access. It's like the master account for the server. And you're actually going to want to ensure that a hacker can't find this root login. So that's what hackers usually start doing. They know that everybody gets a root account, so that's the first place they're going to try to hack, because they know that they can get onto the server with that account. So you want to change your account from being the root account to something else, a username that you have that's very non-specific. And what you see is you see a lot of hackers, they'll try to look for common account names, right? Admin or root or admin user or something like that, right? They have these automated software that go out and they try to find login accounts, and so they want to break the server, and so it's best to use some other username that would be not so easy for a hacker to know, something that's unique to you. So the first thing how you do this is you're going to log into your server with the root. So you're going to do SSH root and put in your IP address, which will allow you to log into your server. The next step you're going to do is you're going to have your what we call not root here, which is your unique username that you've picked. So you're going to pick the unique username and you're going to add sudo, add user, and then the username that you've picked, right? Then you're going to create a new password for the user that you just created. And again, super strong password, always super strong password with this. Lots of money is going to be on here. Don't, use a password you use with a lot of your email and things like that. So once you create your password, you're going to get a lot of this. It's going to ask you for the Unix password. Again, your password may not show visibly here. Don't worry about that. And once you've done that, you'll get this output. It's going to ask you for your room number, work phone number, home number. You can just leave all of this blank and then yes when it asks if the information is correct. Then you're going to add the new user you created to the sudo group. Remember, sudo is like the administrative privileges group. So you're going to add user mod -ag sudo and then put your username that you just created. Don't put not root, right? But you substitute your username here. Anywhere this is yellow, it means enter what you've already created, your new username. Okay. And then you're going to switch to the new user account. So you're going to do su dash and then the username you just created. And that's going to switch you to your new user account, right? Then it's always good to verify that the new account that you've created has the super user privileges. So you're going to do sudo ls-la/root. And this is going to do is just verify that you have that privileges. You should see something like this, right? All of these privileges here, and then you kind of verify, okay, yeah, we've got the super user privileges. Okay, so now you've set up a new user, which is critical, and going forward, that's the user you're going to be mainly working with, okay? Now, what we need to do is we need to have you now generate RSA key pair. Now, what is this? This is going to be a pair of keys where you're going to store one part of the pair of keys on your local machine so that it's really limited, who can access the server, right? You don't want anybody to be able to access the server from any location. You want to control the access points where you can access the server, and using RSA key pair is a great way to do that because those RSA key pairs are unique to you and it's just a little bit more secure, or actually quite a bit more secure than just using a password, right? So how we're going to do this is you're going to start on your local computer, right? And you're going to open a new terminal window. Again, this is on your local computer, not on your server. So using that Windows terminal that I was showing you, you just type SSH-keygen. And that's going to create an output of a public-private key pair. And, you can, enter the file of where you want to save that. Just, leave this like it is. Just be sure that you know where the storage location of this is so you can find it. Okay. And, if you're asked to override it, yes. Now, the critical thing here is once you create these, you need to be sure that you have backed up the keys in this folder. And when it asks you if you want to overwrite, always be sure you've backed up what's in the current folder, because if it gets overwritten, you can lose access to the server that requires this. So you have to be super careful when doing this. But if it's the first time you're creating this, you're going to want to say where this folder is and be sure that you save a backup of these keys. You put on a flash drive, something like that, external hard drive, something. Okay, now this also shows you where to find the SSH keys, right? So what you want to do now is you want to enter a passphrase for this. And so, again, pick a super complex password here. Again, nothing will show up as you appear, but this is going to be the passphrase to help you with encrypting your keys. So you type this in, and then once you get this output, it shows you this random art image and a lot of things here. Okay. You want to limit the permission of the private key file. SSH needs this. It won't, be able to use it if you don't do that. So you need to drag the file to get its path, or find out where the path is to this. and you want to type chmod 400, and then the key to where the path to where your key is here. And this is for your private key. This is going to change the permission of this. And then here's an example of what this looks like if you want to see how this would look typed out. And basically what this does is you move the private keys into the public and private keys into the right place, and then encrypt them, and ensure that they're encrypted and backed up. Okay, so how we're going to do this is you have your keys now, and you want to copy the public key to the server. So remember, you have two keys, public key and private key. The public key is what goes onto the server that can be put on multiple servers if you wanted to. But the private key is only for your server. You only keep that. So what you're going to do is you're going to drag and drop the public key and run this command. Now, again, when it says drag and drop, if you're on Windows, that might be a little tricky. You can through your file explorer, or you can just get the path to this and enter the location of this. So what you're going to do is you're going to do ssh-copy-id-I, and then you're going to put the path on your machine where your public key is held, and then you're going to type in where it says not root. Remember, that's the username you created on your server, so your username, and then and then the IP address of your server. So this here is something that you're going to type in. Here's a sample of what this looks like here. Where it says username, that would be your username, not the word username, but the username you created on your server. And this is the path of where this person's private key is. Once you do this, it's going to basically put these keys onto your server. It says, here one key remains to be installed. If you are prompted, now you want to install the keys. And now what you want to do here is where it's asking for the server's password, you type in your user ID's password, not the SSH key's password, because now these passwords could be the same. I may not recommend it, right? It's always good to have separate passwords, but you want to type in the username that you created on the server. So not the root password, but the password you created for your particular user on that server. Okay, and this is going to add the keys here. So your key is going to be added. So at this point, your key has been added to the server. Now, what you're going to try to do now is to try to log into the server using that SSH key and not your password or anything like that. So what you're going to do is you type this in here, SSH-I, and then you have the link to your private key on your machine, and then you have, see, this is the private key before you uploaded the public key, so you be sure to upload the public key to the server. You keep the private key, so you put the link to your private key here, and then you type the username on your server that you created, and then the IP address of the server. And what's going to happen once you do this, it's going to enter you for the passphrase of the key of your private key. So this is the password you created for your SSH key, not the password that's on your server for your user. Again, this is the password that is for your private key. And that's what it shows here. Type in the password of the SSH key, not the password that you created on your server. Okay, and then you confirm if you're logged in successfully. And then if you want to, you can save this customized command for using later. And you want to verify that this is the only key that can be used to log in. So you type cat and then this $home/.ssh dash authorized keys. And this is what the output should match. Okay, so that's a good start to get you started with SSH. I'm going to put a break here on this video, and we'll resume this in the next tutorial. Again, this is all about just getting the security set up on your server. By this time, you should be able to set up a non-root user. You have your updates set up on your server, and you've created your SSH keys. You put this on your machine, and now you can log into your server using SSH instead of using like just a standard password. Now, none of this is anything to do Cardano specifically. As you can see, that's why it's critical to have some Linux knowledge when doing this, Linux command lines. So if you're not that great at this, take some time studying about Linux and command lines, etc. Also, be sure that you go to my stake pool to donate. Again, it's ANCH, Anchor of Hope. If you like this content, if you find it helpful to guide you through this process, In the next video, we'll continue more about securing your servers and going through a lot more detail of how to do that. But for now, we'll stop here, and you can come back in the next session where we'll learn more about securing the server further and then get into the meat of creating your actual Cardano node.